Hi, my name is Hiro Koo. I'm actually a hypnotherapist. So today I'm going to share with you about my journey as a hypnotherapist and also in these 10 years after graduate from UTAR, how exciting it is for me personally. Okay, I'm born in Kota Tinggi, so and after that I continue study in New High School. It's a Chinese independent school. So after I graduate, then I further study in UTAR. Okay, so basically the reason I study UTAR last time is due to financial issue, to be frank. So for me, among all the university, UTAR is more affordable. That's why I'm going there. Remember, I studied in Kampa. So I choose Kampa because I feel that there's more like campus life there. Why I study psychology degree actually mainly because when I was young, I went through a lot of psychological trauma. So I'm trying to searching an answer for why I'm suffering for all this discomfort in my body and mind. So actually studying psychology for me is a self-exploration journey, not really for career at the beginning. Trying to make sense what actually I'm facing. So basically, the psychological trauma that I went through, including institutional betrayal trauma, shame trauma, bullying, and there's quite much of things that I can't even remember now. Because after traumatized, you can somehow dissociate a lot of memory. A lot of things will be quite blurry. For me, all this trauma, they actually live in me because in daily life, I can experience quite much of flashback. The flashback is not really about memory, it's about body mind experience. So basically, currently, I'm doing a lot of trauma-informed work. So the trauma-informed work, what I'm helping people is working on the psychological trauma. So psychological trauma is not necessarily an illness. So a lot of people actually suffering in trauma, but they didn't aware. Trauma actually can cause a lot of poor mental health concern. You're not necessarily having illness when you're having trauma. So for example, if you are having a financial trauma, you're not necessarily having a financial trauma illness, right? But it will cause you have a lot of problem when you're growing up. Maybe for you, the financial related issue can trigger your anxiety feeling, making you a lot low mood, low motivation, even can causing you have more urge to do some risky investment because you want to earn fast money. So all these kind of trauma actually affecting all of us. But basically a lot of people that didn't really pay attention to it because you are not having illness yet. So my target group of my client mostly having this kind of traumatic stress that causing their behavioral or psychological issue. And what I'm doing, basically using like hypnotherapy, psychotherapy skill, and also the neurofeedback to help people to overcome their traumatic event so they are more in control of their current life. What motivated me to become a hypnotherapist basically is due to, as I mentioned earlier, during my secondary school, I went through a lot of psychological trauma, bully, all this, right? So I don't know whether you guys heard about like Harry Potter. So during that time, I reading all this magical thing is my escape of reality. So when I studying Harry Potter, I particularly enjoy the part that people reading script and help people to heal. It's very magical. So when I graduated from psychology, even though a lot of people will ask me to go for like more popular option, for example, be a counselor or be a psychologist, clinical psychologist or whatever, but I still prefer to be a hypnotherapist. Because for me, hypnotherapy sounds like, at the beginning when I don't know about hypnotherapy, I feel it's very magical. Because you basically formulate a therapeutic script to help people to healing, even improve their concern. So that's why I'm really interested in that. So, and then at the beginning, that's the reason why I chose hypnotherapy lah, because of curiosity. But after that, I found that hypnotherapy is not what I'm thought of. It's not really magic, but it's really a form of like psychological therapy that can help people to overcome their concern. And you're not only helping people who are having the illness, you actually can help a lot of people who want to like achieve their peak performance. So actually majority of my clients come to see me due to either poor mental health issue or they want to achieve their peak performance. Yeah, the reason I combine the hypnotherapy and neurofeedback is due to when I remember 10 years ago, after I graduated from my diploma in hypnotherapy study, and I found that I can't really convince by hypnotherapy. The reason is because I feel that it's quite subjective. Can't really see how the mind works. So I'm a person who actually need to depend quite much of evidence and also want to see a visual context, like what is really happening in our mind. So if you just tell me that it works, I won't get convinced. So hypnotherapy, after that I searching for an answer, and I finally found this technology which is called EEG biofeedback. The EEG biofeedback, or we call neurofeedback, is actually helping me to pick into the brainwave. From there I can see that when we are really in the hypnotherapy state, how the brainwave can change, how the brainwave look like. Even from the brain mapping of the neurofeedback technology, we can see how unconscious mind process look like. So for me, that convinced me, and I managed to convince client with this technology also. I think that I somehow within these 10 years, most of the achievement that for me is really, I feel proud of is helping a lot of clients actually finally getting to know themselves better, which is help them to find their true authentic self. That I think that is my biggest achievement. But if you want to talk about like award, like actually I also getting some award for my personal development. For example, my PhD study, my innovation, creative brain health innovation, that helping me to get the Malaysia most outstanding TOYM, most outstanding youngster, top 30. So under the medical innovation for my PhD work in 2021. And also like the Hall of Wellness Asian region winner for the wellness practitioner in 2020, I think. And then also, I helping my industry hypnotherapy to get the approval to develop a national occupational standard skill. So the national occupational standard skill, NOS, actually also agree to develop hypnotherapy this profession. And NOS become the second, I think in Malaysia is the second one in the world who developed the national level for hypnotherapy standard. Yeah, and also recently because hypnotherapy is not a licensed profession yet, so we also actually able to engage the traditional and complementary medicine department of MOH. Now we start the inspection and also the recognition appraiser phase 1. Now we start to having the appraiser. So if all this is success, I believe that in the future to practice hypnotherapy, we also need a license, which helping the which is more I think that there will be provide more protection for the public. I think that the tougher issue so far will be there's a lot of myths surround with hypnotherapy, and we actually need to do quite much of awareness, even like media, newspaper or whatever. whatever way, we need to actually educate people what is the therapeutic hypnotherapy really is, because a lot of people thought hypnotherapy is something else or it's like magical. And also in this profession, because hypnotherapy is not yet a licensed profession, so a lot of people actually will judging it, and then also like talk about a lot of nonsense about it, but which is not true. Hypnotherapy actually is an evidence-based practice, but a lot of people actually they don't know. And also the practitioner in the field, there's a lot of different standards. So in the end, somehow people can actually sometimes get disappointed or misled by all the fact that they learn through maybe gossip or whatever. So we need to do quite much of awareness work. So I think first thing we need to think about mental health as something like not only black and white. So what I mean black and white here is, it's not like either you are healthy or you are having illness. Because actually a lot of people, when they are suffering in like mental health issue, normally they're seeking help when they're having illness. But in fact, there's a lot of gray area. You can be neither like healthy, also illness, but you're still suffering. You are still suffering in poor mental health state. So actually a lot of people are suffering in poor mental health state. Yeah, so even my PhD thesis, I actually focus on this group of people, because I remember when I was young, because I'm not having illness, but I also not healthy. So I'm tend to neglect by the system. People actually just ask me to think positively, think over my problem, which causing me a lot of like trauma and this kind of like institutional betrayal trauma, because the people supposed to help me, they're somehow asking me to like shut down. So I want to help people who are like having similar issue like me. I hope their pain can be seen and then can be helped as well. Yeah, I think that like when you notice that people having the psychological issue or mental health issue, right, you can perceive it like we actually in this COVID period, like COVID era, sometimes we also get COVID, right? And even we get flu. So when you're having mental health issue, actually it's quite common. I would say that like just like flu, everyone can get flu. So it's not like after you recover from the flu, then you will be forever healthy. Just like after you get COVID, doesn't mean that you will forever immune, because we still can get a lot around the like second, third, fourth round of COVID, right? So same thing to the mental health issue. So sometimes when it's poor mental health issue, it can be like flu, but when it's more severe, it look like COVID. But as long as you actually proactively handling it, and even you find out the risk factor that can contribute to your mental health issue, then you actually can help to prevent it happen again. That's why my work also work on like prevention, helping people to aware that what is the factor that causing them to like always get the so-called flu, not like flu like mental health issue. So once they're aware that what causing them the problem, then they can be more proactively coping with it. So we actually sharing a lot of psychoeducation and also teaching a lot of coping skills to help people. When I'm doing my PhD work, right, I found that actually 1 out of 5 people, according to national study, like Malaysian national study, 1 out of 5 people having depression symptom and 2 out of 5 people having anxiety symptom. That means actually it's not only depression, anxiety actually is a very serious issue. The anxiety symptom. You're not necessarily having anxiety disorder in order to label yourself as having anxiety. You can actually suffer in subclinical issue. Subclinical issue means that you can like maybe rumination, excessively worry, and your anxious feeling causing you have a lot of psychological discomfort. For example, maybe like health anxiety symptom, or like when you want to sleep, you also worry that you can't fall asleep. All this anxiety is very common in our daily life, and it's like almost like you see 2 out of 5 people actually experience it. So you know how common it is. But it's most of the people is having subclinical also. So before they become a full-blown mental illness, most of the people just suffer in silence. This is something that worries us. I think that the life of a therapist is tough in the sense that in the therapy room, whatever thing that you haven't resourced for yourself, you tend to get triggered by your client as well. For example, let's say you have some betrayal trauma. When you were in the session with client, if clients suffer in betrayal trauma, it's very easy to actually encounter the transference issue. So what we need to do as a therapy, we also need to go through our supervision to always like help ourselves as well. So we can be more neutral when we're seeing the client. So it's like flashback, not only like flashback of memory, but you also can flashback in terms of your like defense mechanism. So when you are like, let's say you see a client who are having similar issue like you, it's quite common that you will suddenly feel like you want to so-called rescue them. But as a therapy, our job is not rescue them. We actually more like empower them. So I think that the tough part will be, it's not only helping other people, but also about helping yourself. Because I'm actually focused on trauma-informed work. So in trauma-informed work, we always actually need to be mindful about our psychological well-being. So for myself, besides the professional work, and because as I say, my work is also my hobby, I really enjoy to read a lot of things about hypnotherapy. Because if you read through the hypnotherapy book, you will find it fascinating. It's very, very interesting. A lot of very magical, so-called like magical concept in the hypnotherapy practice. But beside that, I also have other hobby. For example, I have pet. So like pet assistant therapy is helping me to feel psychological safety in my house as well. And my hobby also about traveling. So I traveling very often, which is my second hobby lah. So when I go for like traveling, not only because I want to enjoy, I also train myself to enjoy the peace. Because for people who are having psychological trauma, to enjoy the peace is very difficult. So for me, holiday, the tougher part is not about travel, it's about how can I enjoy now, the present, and enjoy the peace, which is something that I still trying to master lah. Yeah, I think that if you are really interested in the mental health profession, right, it'll be good that you can start to like not only like studying about it, but really to talk to those people who are in the field to understand their job. I remember before I decide to further study in hypnotherapy, right, I actually contact few hypnotherapy center and I asking them about like, can I go for an interview, asking about their everyday life. And I remember I finally found a hypnotherapist and she offered me to visit her center. Through the field visit, it helped me to understand the job. I really feel like, oh, this is something that I want, that only I go to study. Because whatever that I read online, right, sometimes can be misled and sometimes can be confusing. So I believe that first thing, you really need to go to the field and understand their work. And second, I believe that for ourselves, it's very important to do some like, it's not necessary therapy, but it's more like a self-discovery to really understand your true authentic self. If you don't know yourself well, you basically just live for others. Most of the time, we just live for the society, we live for others, people's expectation. If you can't really understand your true authentic self, whatever job that you choose, right, in the end, you don't know whether you choose it or the society or your parent that actually want you to choose it. So for me, I go through this phase of life and I'm really struggling to searching for myself. And it's not really smooth. I have a lot of like failure in between, but I don't perceive it as a failure. Every time when I fail, I perceive it as a stepping stone. I actually will do a lot of self-reflection. Sometimes I will feel shameful, sometimes I will feel bad, but somehow I learn and then I continue improve myself. So I become who am I today. So today I feel very happy to be invited by the Department of Alumni, Relation and Placement, UTAR. So I have an opportunity to share whatever thing that I went through here. And also thankful to UTAR for coming out the affordable tuition fee. I remember that I almost gave up because last time I was not really financially, I would say financially, it's not really good for me to choose a university. But I remember 10 years ago, luckily have UTAR, so I still can continue pursue my goal in my life. And also even my brother also graduated from the medical doctor here. He's now also, because of UTAR, he can study the medical profession as well. And now he's practice in hospital. And I believe that UTAR really helping a lot of us to achieve the dream. So I'm proud to be UTARian. Thank you.